You're joining us for our monthly learning breakfast where we bring in a special guest to learn more about the industry and to target important topics that you want to know about. So this morning we have a guest named Richard Drake. He is the CEO of Renters Warehouse and an active real estate investor. He's here to tell us about his experiences, about all of the things he has going on, and to answer any questions. So feel free to type in your questions on the broadcast and we'll make sure those get read and answered. We have our entire team here, so we're real people here at My House Deals. You can see us
I'm talking
here.
to Doug. I don't know why he's
Are you really?
So here we are, and we're very excited for you to be joining us for our first Facebook Live post. So sit back and tell us your questions. We'll get them answered. And I'll turn it over to Richard Drake.
Was that really Doug?
Sorry, I was talking to Doug, and he's an idiot. So, no, this is what he thought was funny. Which office? I have so much money, I don't know which one it is. I can't keep track. He thinks he's funny.
Nice.
So I told him to get on the screen, and he said, "I'm too much of an introvert." So what's up, guys? Somebody asked me a question. I'm Richard Drake. I'm with Renters Warehouse and Homevestors, the We Buy Ugly Houses guys. Been doing that for about 19 years. Bought and sold a bunch of houses. I don't know if I'm some kind of expert on real estate or not, but we buy houses, we sell them. We buy houses, we hold them. We've recently started managing property for the public with Renters Warehouse, going on about 3 years. We were managing our own portfolio for many years before that, and we've really grown that business quite a bit. I'm not on the screen, it's annoying.
You're on this. You can watch yourself here.
Oh my gosh, I look goofy. Anyhow, we're just here kind of chit-chatting about real estate a little bit and see where it goes, where the conversation goes. I'm not really, I don't have a plan, just shoot.
So tell us a little bit how you guys started in real estate investing and how you went from Homevestors to Renters Warehouse and how that grew.
So Homevestors came, I was a military guy back in the early 90s. I was a pilot for the Navy, and I was on the West Coast, and 96 got out of the Navy. So my now partner called me and said, "Hey, I'm going to become a real estate investor, so you give me $25,000, I'm going to buy this house on Cavalcade, and I'm going to fix it up and sell it, and then I'll give you 30% of the profit." So I said, okay. So I sent him $25,000, and 57 days later, I got $7,200 in profit. So I thought, oh, this is easy. So I was in Seattle, and I was just getting out of the Navy, so I went and bought a house down there. I had no idea what to do. Didn't even have clear title. Just gave him money. Idiot. And so I bought this house, ended up finally getting clear title, finally selling it, probably barely broke even. So I came back to Texas after being in the Navy. I stayed in Seattle for one more ski season. Got back here, got a job at Papacito's waiting tables. And so I started doing training there and started buying houses. So what we would do back then is we would drive down the street with a notepad and we would write down addresses. If you saw a house with high grass, or the windows were busted out, or a fallen down for sale sign that nobody's paying attention to, so we'd take that list, go back home, and then we would go on to Harris County Appraisal District and find out who owned it, and we'd write the name next to it, and then we'd get the phone book out and we'd go down and we'd call everybody with that name until we found the person that owned it, and then ask them if they wanted to sell it. So it was a long process. It was cheaper than mailers or billboards, but it might take 10 or 15 of my hours to find one owner, because you had to call. If it was Joe Smith, just forget about it. You just didn't do that house. So it was great when you see like 3 people that were Elmer Shagnasty or whatever their name was. So you knew you had them as one of those 3. So we would call them, leave messages, call them. We had a follow-up process, and we'd buy the house, get it under contract, then we'd call somebody that did rehabs and we'd flip it, make $2,000. We were millionaires. So we thought we were genius. So I ran into a buddy of mine from college that was in Homevestors, and we became the 12th office of Homevestors back in late 96, early 97. So fast forward, my partner and I would go do our deals, and then we brought a third partner on because we didn't have enough money to buy the franchise. So now there's 3 of us. And today we're the oldest franchise in the nation. There's 700 and some odd franchises, and we bought a little over 1,500 houses. We kept houses as rentals the absolute wrong way. So
What not to do?
here's what not to do. I've done all those things. So we buy a house, fix it up, sell it. Buy a house, fix it up, sell it. We bought a house, fix it up, and it wouldn't sell. I said, oh, we'll just make it into a rental. So if anybody's ever heard the term sludge, that's the houses you can't sell. We made all of our sludge into our rental portfolio, which was ridiculously stupid. You get a piece of crap house, get rid of it. Find a way to get rid of it, don't keep it. But we kept the junk. So slowly we've culled that out, and we've started buying the 322 brick in the suburbs type stuff. $1,300 to $1,800 rental. That's our bread and butter. You don't get a bunch of maintenance. You don't get a bunch of problems. You get a higher end blue collar, lower end white collar customer. Perfect tenants. 3.2 kids and a dog and a half, whatever the stats are. and that's a great tenant. So 10 years ago, we managed our own stuff. We would manage the house very, very poorly. We didn't collect rent on time. We didn't know how to collect rent. So we hired a property management company. I won't say the name, that'd be rude. And they were just as bad as us. And we were paying them money. So we took it back over, and we did a little bit better. So we forced ourselves to get some processes and enforce our leases and things like that. We still were middle of the road. And I was at the Lifestyles Unlimited deal 4 years ago, and I saw in Personal Real Estate Investor magazine, they had an article about Renters Warehouse. So I just called them, and we ended up buying that franchise. Basically, they're a technology company that happened to choose property management as their vehicle. We use 18 pieces of software to manage rental property. So I would say, we're not My House Deals and REI like high tech, but we're on the edge of technology with property management. We don't have a filing cabinet in the office. It's all soft copies.
That's awesome.
We have an old filing cabinet with old files in it that our internet went down because we have lovely Comcast. So here's the great part about having employees. So here we are. The power works. Phones don't work, voice over IP phones, and internet's out. So I walk back into property management, and there's 5 people standing around going, well, we can't do anything. Oh, yes, you can. Find something to do. So we start shredding old files, because they're just sitting there and we're not using them. So yesterday was shred day, and we shredded a couple hundred files since the internet was down and nobody could get anything done. So now we're at 1,120 some odd units under management 3 years later. We're growing about 10% a month. We're trying to grow that to about 10,000 units under management. It's a very scalable business. Just add another manager, add another maintenance person, and by having the processes from that franchise, if you notice a trend, Home Investors, Renters Warehouse, both franchises, it's just a business in a box situation. We feel like it would take a lot of time and effort and money to build those processes, and we probably wouldn't build them quite as well as they did. They've already made all the mistakes you're supposed to make in that business, and it's expensive to have a franchise and pay the royalties, but to us it's worth it because we can accelerate our growth quite a bit, because in 3 years we wouldn't be anywhere close to where we are.
So what's your main source of leads?
Radio. So we advertise a lot on the radio. We're on about 6 stations now. We just added Eagle, which is the first FM station we ran, and it's doing well. But we're on 790, 740, 950, 610 Sports. Oh, we're on 97.5, which is ESPN radio as well. The sports talk works well for us. Conservative talk works well. We need the white collar guy that is sophisticated enough to understand that selling the house is the wrong decision. Buying and holding rental property is pretty much a no-brainer. I have a business coach, and he said the single most lucrative venture in the world or return on your investment is buying a failing business and turning it around and reselling it. You can buy a business for, pay the rest of my lease, if they're not making any money. Pay my lease so I can get out of it at my strip center or whatever, and turn around and sell it for $200,000 in 6 months if you just make a few bucks. The second most lucrative thing he said is rental property. He said, if you don't have $5 million, you don't belong in the stock market. You just don't. It's speculating. Regular folks like us just can't afford to lose $30,000 because of the whim of some oil guy overseas. So rental property is a no-brainer. You buy an asset that in 99.9% of the time in Houston, Texas is going to go up 2 or 3 or 4% a year over the long term. You'll have a bad year or two, but in the long run, 3% a year. You buy it today, somebody else pays for it, 30 years later it's worth triple what you paid for it, and you don't owe any debt on it anymore. And with rates as low as they are now, it's a no-brainer. So that's all I know about that.
So you only advertise on the radio?
We do radio. We're vendors at Lifestyles.
Billboards the last few months. Billboards.
Well, billboards with Homevestors, yes. With Renters Warehouse, we haven't done billboards. For Homevestors, we do a lot of TV, billboard, direct mail, and that's to find houses. And everybody knows, a house that goes up on the My House deals, there's going to be competition with the buyer. Anybody that blasts out a house, there's competition. The very best deal you're going to get is the one where somebody says, come see my house, I want to sell it, and they're not talking to anybody else. And that's where the wholesaler gets that house to wholesale. Now, there's still meat on the bones on a lot of those deals, because if you don't leave some profit in it, nobody will buy it. So, I've bought houses off My House deals plenty of times. But the best deal is going to be, little homeowner and her husband that say, we just bought one the other day. The lady, her father passed away. She's not going to fix it. She doesn't want to. It's a mental thing with her, and I think we got it at 62% of LTV, that's about normal for a Homevestor deal.
Yeah.
You're paying 75, 80 nowadays for wholesale.
We have a question.
Oh, it's really, you asked the question.
I
See,
actually have
she's
another
setting this
question.
up. She's setting you up.
So I'm curious to know how, since you've been in the market for a long time with investing, so how has your business model changed since the market's changed? Because you've seen it low, you've seen it high, and now, so I'm curious to know how it's changed and how it is right now.
It's changed quite a bit. One of the things we say is, if you can't innovate, you're going to fail in the market. You have to change your model based on what real estate is doing, and it's a cycle. It's going to be bad again. It'll be great again. The great part about Houston is we don't get the giant swings like a Phoenix or a Tucson or West Coast gets. We get just the small waves. But when 07, 08 happened and nobody could sell a house, we had more rentals by necessity. We changed the way we sell houses. We did a lot of owner financing. We take that, create owner finance notes, and then package the notes and sell them. You have to figure out a way to make it happen. A lot of investors got foreclosed on. A lot of hard money lenders had a lot of problems because those investors couldn't figure out what to do. So they weren't creative enough to adjust to the market. And you have to constantly do that. Look at right now in the rental market. A $1,200–1,500 rent house is gone in a week. A $4,000 rent house is now a $3,500 rent house. And you go in the Heights and you can rent whatever you want cheap, because people in the oil business are afraid. So that guy that makes good money in the oil business and he has a $300,000 house, he ain't going to buy a $500,000 house because he's going to sit down and watch and wait. He's like, I can afford a $500,000 house. I just got a raise 6 months ago, but what happens if I don't have a job in 6 months? So we watched that. We adjusted our buying now. When we go look at a higher dollar house, we're whacking them, or we're not buying it. If we can't get just a smoking hot deal on a high-end house, we don't buy. And that's the kind of things you have to do. You have to look and say, what's happening now, what might happen, and you have to, I don't know if you want to say be overly conservative. You know, you have to, you gotta make a living, but you can't just go out there and push the numbers on today you can't push the numbers on a $600,000 house and just say, oh, well, I can make 10% on this deal and it's going to be over $100,000. Well, you make a 10% error on repairs and the ARV, you just lost money. So that's one mistake a lot of people make is on a higher dollar house. They'll squeeze the LTV up because they see the big dollar amount. And if you miss on your calculation on your ARV, you're dead in the water.
Yeah.
What's one of the differences that you see between home investors and, I guess, your mom and pop wholesale options?
Home investors has buying power, so we're able to buy 50,000 mailers. We're able to have A/B testing running constantly on different fonts or different color paper, different this, different that. So we really have refined and we get probably better response rates from mailers. Same thing with the advertising. Personally, I don't know many wholesalers that would spend 60 or 70,000 a month on TV. They can't do it. But as an ad council in Houston, the home investors offices pool their money, and we have a big splash in the TV. So when somebody sees the TV, the biggest problem we have against the mom and pop is that as soon as they see us on TV, they go to the web. And then when they say, we buy ugly houses or home investors, all the competition pops up on the Google results. So then you get a situation where a lot of times they'll click 5 of them and call them all. So now it's a competitive bid situation. But the short answer, I already gave you the long answer. The short answer is we get our advertising cheaper because of the volume, and we get in front of more people that we're the only one they're talking to. And we're able to get a better value. And we're honest with people. Say, look, we're going to buy it, we're going to fix it, we're going to sell it for a profit. Or we're going to buy it and we're going to wholesale it. We don't know. The good thing is we can negatively sell against the wholesaler pretty easily, because a wholesaler that doesn't close, that always flips, that's a scary thing for a homeowner, because there's a lot of money. You guys have seen them. You probably get complaints. The guy that writes a contract and he has no intention of closing unless he can flip it. And that gives all of us a bad name, because my intention may be to flip a house or wholesale a house. If I see a house, I really prefer to wholesale it. If I don't wholesale it, I'm closing, because that's what I said I would do. A lot of these guys will just get as long a close date as they can, and when it gets down to the end of the wire and they haven't flipped it, they'll try to go back and read. There's a very prominent real estate investor in Houston. That's his model, and I'd love to be able to say his name, but that'd be rude. But his model is to overbid home investors or whoever by whatever he needs to do to get the contract, try to wholesale it. If he can't wholesale it, wait till it's about to close and then go back and renegotiate the deal and say, something came up, can't close, we're gonna have to take a haircut. And now they feel like they're down a road, they don't know what they can do, so they take the lower amount, which was maybe less than what we paid in the first place. And it's very unethical to do that, I think. And I'd like to throw a punch in, but.
Does that conversation sound like when you say, hey, I will either find another buyer, I will wholesale this, not necessarily in that term, but or I will buy it myself? Like, how do you?
Well, we just tell them we're going to buy the house. It's irrelevant whether we wholesale or not to them. Mm-hmm. Why do they care? Now, certainly, if you do wholesale a house and somebody, if you said, here's what I did, I got a contract from you and made $5,000 and sold it, some people would not like that. A reasonable person would just say, whatever, it's business. But the public's not reasonable, so a lot of times they would. So we don't necessarily say flat out, hey, I'm going to go flip your house. We say, hey, I'm going to buy your house. And we just normally just buy it. We almost always close. We very, very seldom do an assignment.
So we're going to ask a few questions from the comments now.
Okay.
We'll start with
How many people are watching?
8.
8.
Yeah, you're pretty popular.
Holy moly.
Plus our team that's remote.
8?
8 on Facebook. So a question from one of our teammates that's remote. How many organic leads do you get from Homevestors, and would you franchise with them again if you had to go back?
What do you mean by organic? You mean organic from the internet? Or what define organic? And yes, we would do it again just because of the brand. You got to remember now, after all these years,
Just leads in general.
Just leads in general.
Homevestors is like the McDonald's, right? If you said, "Hey, have you heard of Homevestors?" 50% of people go, "Yep." Have you heard of the We Buy Ugly Houses guys? 99% of people go, "Yep, I know those guys." Right. So when somebody says, "I'm gonna go get a hamburger," well, in Texas, a Whataburger, but if somebody says, "I'm gonna go get a hamburger," they go to a brand they know. And when somebody says, "Hey," out of the blue, "Hey, I think I'm just gonna sell this house and not deal with it," the brand they know is the We Buy Ugly Houses guys. And they'll go straight to the web and they'll type in "We Buy Ugly Houses," and there will be the top 6 results. You know, organically, we dominate the search results. The problem is people buy that keyword.
Right, but
And we're fighting with Google. We're suing Google because they shouldn't allow them to buy a copyrighted word.
Right. Okay, we have another one from the Facebook comments. What made you What made you decide to go into property management, and what problems were you seeing investors who became landlords running into?
Well, that's a great question. Well, we've been doing Homevestors for a lot of years, and we've been keeping rental properties for a while, and so we know there's no wealth building in a flipping business. A flipping business is a job. So you buy, you fix, you sell. You buy, you wholesale. When you stop buying and selling, you stop making money. So the only way to build wealth is to keep those properties. The second way to build wealth is to have a business like a property management company that we could scale, and then we could step away from. So now, I mean, I'm not there right now, and it's not a big deal. I'm there every day right now while we're growing, but I don't have to be that. I'm leaving tomorrow for Aruba for 5 days, and things won't change. People don't come to me every day and say, "Hey, what about this file?" They go to somebody else. So the idea of getting into property management is something we already understood, something we were good at, and something we saw great potential in scaling as a very profitable business in a large view. As a small 1,000 units, not very profitable. You know, but with 10,000 units, it can be a profitable business because you got scale. So we were able to solve 2 problems. We started managing our properties very, very effectively, and then as we went to the public, we were able to really help a lot of people. Because what the part about a homeowner, it is a terrible idea to drill your own teeth. Nobody changes their own oil anymore, right? I mean, all these things that people do every day are things you should just hire them to do. You and I bought our glasses from a plumber, right? Wrong, right? So I use that. That's a great sales tool to say, would you cut your own hair? Would you change your own oil, right? You don't do that. So why would you try to manage a property which has way more pitfalls than an oil change? If you say the wrong thing or don't have the right locks on the door, there's all kinds of problems you can have. There's so many details in property management that you can screw up. And our easiest sales pitch to a homeowner is, when you have a tenant that's late, what do you do? And then they say, "Well, I'll call them and see what's going on." Yeah. Well, what day do you call them? And because what really happens is they're late. Our tenants are late after the 2nd because the law says we have to give them 1 day grace. So we have to give them until the 2nd. So on the 3rd, they get a 3-day notice to vacate. They get an auto dialer turned on that says, "Hey, where's my money?" every 2 hours. So the homeowner that manages his own, he might call him on the 10th. And then he's going to a baseball tournament, and then he's going back to work. And then on the 17th, he's like, "Oh my gosh, I completely forgot. I still don't have my rent." So it's an easy conversation to have with an owner, and it's true. That owner ends up 30, 40 days later with no rent, and now he has to figure out how to go down the constable and do what he needs to do, and he didn't even know where to go, or what to say, or how much to pay, or how to fill out the paperwork. And when you get there, they say, "Nope, we don't take checks, we only take a money order," or they say, "Nope, we don't take a money order, we only take a check," depending on the precinct. No credit cards, and now you got to leave and go back and get money. And when you get there and you say, "How do I fill this paper out?" they say, "Can't give you legal advice." And then when you give it to them, "Nope, it's wrong." So you can't possibly think it's a great idea to manage your own rental property. It's insane. I don't know how to build shirts. You know, I just pick a random thing that I don't know how to do. There's plenty of those. Why would you not just hire somebody that knows how to do that?
That's a good pitch.
Yeah.
There's
Sold me.
another- Sorry, there's another question.
Yeah, there's another question. Do you use private money to buy the houses?
When we buy our houses, we do. Mhm.
Yep.
We use private, and we have a line at a bank. So depending on where we are with our line, we have a line that we buy with, and then we roll them into long term at the same bank.
Gotcha.
If we keep them or if we sell them. So if that line's getting pretty full, we have 2 or 3 private guys.
That you use?
And we actually use hard money sometimes if we need to, depending on our
So it's situational.
it depends on our inventory.
Gotcha.
If we have a lot of houses, we got $2 million worth of short-term stuff out, maybe we have to use hard money. You got to do what you got to do.
Right.
Don't lose the deal.
Yep.
Yeah.
We have another comment from Facebook. Have you ever ventured into property development?
I have not. I have an opinion on that. Imagine that. I have an opinion. Do what you know how to do and do a whole bunch of it, and don't try to do everything. So there's about 20 different things in real estate that we could probably do pretty well. But if we try to do 5 of them, we'll do 5 of them poorly. Pick what you know how to do, and if you are good at doing something, you're making money at it, do that more. Just like you guys are doing this. You guys, My House Deals was very successful, and he said, now we got private money gold mine. Now we got this, and you can expand those and scale those versus, you know, you don't want to have 60 websites. You can't manage them all well. You can manage well, that's a bad example. You do want to have 60 websites. You could manage those well because you could scale that, right? But my point is, you wouldn't say, well, now I'm going to start,
Making shirts.
maybe printing T-shirts on the side because I can sell Chive T-shirts, right? Chive sells their own shirts. So you start thinking, and I'm sure when you have your planning meetings, you got a list of ideas to make money, right? Well, a lot of them aren't related to what you do, and a lot of them will take your eye off the ball of what you do really well and make money at.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know how to develop. It's probably not rocket science, but I hate dealing with municipalities like you wouldn't believe. Just doing rehabs is a shoot me now situation. I hate dealing with the city when we have to do permits. So that would be something I would not like to do anyway, but I'm sure it's pretty profitable. However, the one thing you could see is it's very difficult to get money from a bank. So that means it's probably pretty risky. Because a bank would throw money at you if it wasn't.
So, hi, I have a question.
Howdy.
I work with customer service a lot, and so we interact with customers more than the rest of the company. And the main thing that I see, we have a lot of customers who are extremely new at the business, and they don't have any equity or any capital. And the first transaction that they're interested in doing is a flip with no experience and no money. And you just mentioned, and you brought up something that I've never considered before, and that might be a danger to the homeowner as well as the new investor if they try to flip using hard money, which is probably the only way they can get money for a flip, and with no experience. And so to me, that's kind of like a double negative. And so keeping that in mind, what would you say to those newer investors who want to start their investing business off that way? And if that's not something that you recommend, what do you recommend that they do as a first type of transaction?
And so when you say flip, you mean like rehab retail?
Wholesale, I guess.
Wholesale.
So yeah, not rehab. I'm not
Signing
talking
a
about
contract.
they literally want to.
I know. I've been calling flip, like what
Yeah.
people call wholesale now, I've been calling flip for years. And now everybody
that's
says
it.
flipping a house is rehab and retail. So
Yeah, so that's the term everybody's familiar. When they think flip, they think rehab, but really, from what I know, flip is you get the contract from the homeowner and then you try to sell it to somebody else and get that.
And I absolutely think that a wholesale first is probably the smartest thing for somebody because
Yeah.
if your first deal is a rehab, it's a lot to do if you don't know how to do it. You've got to make sure that you're analyzing the property, easy for you to say, properly, so you are able to wholesale that, and you may only make a few grand or a couple grand to make it happen. If you don't get the contract at the right price, then you did do someone an injustice because you're not going to be able to close. There's a lot of good groups out. There's a lot of shysters out there selling real estate training, but there's a whole bunch of good ones that know the business very well. Training can't hurt. There's tons of networking groups, and just being around people that do deals, you'll get somebody that runs their mouth like me. That'll talk your head off about, and you'll learn something. There's a lot of those groups that'll give you an introductory class for free, and then they'll try to upsell you. Just don't bring your credit card. Go and learn, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it can't hurt. I went to a deal about, it was 4 or 5 years ago, and I got an idea from one of those stupid 2-hour free, scam deals. And actually, Doug had somebody in the garage, in the parking garage, handed out flyers for my deals. And they kicked him out of the garage. It was great. That's right.
I've heard some stories.
But I picked up one little idea that made me a ton of money over the years, because it was a little trick that I, never thought of it. So training, read. I mean, my car is like a moving, school, university.
Yeah.
Everybody else listens to the radio, and I listen to some tape or somebody telling, or TED Talks, stuff like that, because, like talking in public. A year ago, oh my gosh. And now last week at our big event, we partnered with Jet Lending on the Texans Grill.
We were there.
There you go.
A lot of us were.
There was over 800 people there, and it didn't bother me in the
crazy
least.
packed.
I didn't care.
Did you speak?
I was up on the stage.
Oh, I didn't.
Oh, well, see, you weren't paying attention. Oh, you weren't there.
She wasn't
You could. Nobody could hear. Nobody could see. Nobody could hear.
We were kind of in the back, near the alcohol.
If you're-
it was hard to hear.
Imagine that.
More than one reason.
So there's an exciting announcement coming on that event, but I can't say anything.
Exciting.
So we hit 830 bodies in the door, including vendors and staff. Probably around 750 invited people. So it's the biggest networking event ever in the history of Houston, probably. And we're shooting for 1,000 next month. We're having a guest speaker. We need new vendors.
No
Know
venue.
anybody?
New venue. Bigger
No
space.
comment.
That's what I think the
Check
big
your
surprise
email.
So to recap, basically for the newer, you do recommend that someone that's brand new, that they use the flip.
Absolutely, that's a great
As a
idea.
first.
Well,
But
you
they
can build
don't
up some
need-
cash.
But they need to go in it with an extensive amount of training as well, so that they don't
Well,
sell the homeowner.
Yeah, but you're not even going to have a deal unless you know a little bit. You'll
Yeah.
never find the deal unless it's a relationship type of situation
Yeah.
where you just know the owner.
Yeah.
Don't quit your day job. I've said that 100 times, and Mark that works for me will say that.
Yeah.
If you're going to start into real estate brand new, don't quit your day job, because you never know how long it's going to take to get that first check, and until you have a significant income that you're comfortable will continue, it's pretty risky to do that.
Okay. Well, that helps me, because I see that question so often in support, and I just really kind of need a better way to respond to that.
They need to come to the Renters Warehouse Jet Lending event, network with 600 of
Is that
their
once a
closest
month
friends.
now?
It's every third Wednesday,
Oh, okay.
6 to 9. It goes until midnight most of the time.
Awesome.
Probably going to be a live band this month.
What?
Can you tell
What?
us who the speaker will be?
Nope.
At least.
You know who it is though.
Okay.
Everybody knows this person.
Everybody.
We want to get. Do y'all know who Mark Dotzer is?
No.
He was the chief economist for Texas A&M for, I don't know, in the real estate division for 30 years, and he's great. He's one of the best speakers I've ever seen live. And he walks up to the mic and goes, "My name's Mark. I'm an economist." And it's real deadpan. And then he goes off into this tirade about the government and the Fed, and it's great information. He's just as funny as he can be. I mean, he's fantastic. So we want to get him at some point. He's great.
That sounds awesome.
So
But,
another. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Huh?
Another question from our remote guys. Do you sell the rental houses when the equity reaches a certain level? You know, for example, a large profit, would you sell it or keep it at that point?
So our houses, it depends. If we own a lot of houses, like you guys know Edo, we own a lot of houses there that we bought because we saw that coming. So that was speculation. I wouldn't recommend necessarily doing that. But people that bought houses in the Heights and now they're worth $500,000 and they paid 20 grand for them, I can't blame you for selling it. So yeah, if I saw a big spike in a house, a specific neighborhood, I might do that because I'd be afraid of what's coming after. But for the most part, our model is to build up more and more rentals, and when they are all paid off to 100% equity, then just go get a line of credit against them and use that for acquisitions. So let's say you got $5 million worth of property paid off, and you can go and say, give me 80 cents on the dollar for these 5 million houses on a line. It'll be at 4%, right? So then you don't have to deal with a note. You don't have to deal with collateral docs every time you buy a house, because you just go and you draw money off a line because the note's there. So you just draw 100 grand, pay cash for the house, and then if you sell it a week later, so what? You didn't have that giant transaction cost. So our model is to use that money for acquisition and even hard money. If somebody said, hey, I want to borrow some money on this house, we'll loan it to them or something.
That's right.
But you know, we're not necessarily interested in doing that first. Our first goal is to buy houses.
Awesome. For home investors, what % of your leads do you turn away because the situation is, quote, bad? And what is your walk away criteria?
So a normal, is that Doug?
No. We actually have another person named John Smith that works for us as a web developer. And very good friends with Doug.
So so our numbers are, you know, we get 100 calls, we go to look at 25 houses and we buy 4 to 6. That's for 20 years. It's been that.
4, 2, 6.
Between 4 and 6.
Okay.
Good month we'll do 10, a bad month we'll do 4. In the long run it's 6 or 7. The goal is 4 to 6, we're at about 7. The reason we're higher is because we'll buy a wholesale deal once in a while, so that pushes our numbers up a little bit. But somebody called me yesterday about wholesalers. Well, there's no me. You can't make money on that. I said, we buy 1.5 houses a month from wholesalers right now. They're out there. Those big blasts that go out, you look at it and you go, ARV 120. And you go, so-and-so street. Yeah, I just sold a house 2 blocks from there for 140. And you know they're wrong. You go buy it real quick, right? Because they think they're selling it at 80% and they're really selling it at 65. You know, so it happens all the time. They don't know how to look at comps properly. Go buy. So there's still deals on my house deals. I see it all the time. There's deals on my house deals that the wholesaler didn't necessarily evaluate properly. The other part is that house that is 80 or 85 or even 90% of the ARV, but it rents for a lot more. I don't care what the ARV is. I'm renting it if it's a good rent house. So that $1,400 rental in Katy that only sell for $109, and I can get it for $95, I'm buying it, right? Because there's a huge spread to the rental. There's not a huge spread to the ARV. I don't care. I'll pay retail if the rental amount's there. That neighborhood will catch up to the rents. So.
Yeah. What advice would you have for someone who wants to get into rental properties but hasn't done real estate investing in the past? Should they try to find a wholesale deal and fix it up and rent, or use a turnkey service like New Western, or buy houses from renters' warehouses?
So we don't sell houses typically. We have one of our agents, his focus is going finding houses for investors. So a lot of our investors will call and say, I need more houses. He'll go dig around because he knows where they want houses or what have you, and find the best deal. But yeah, you know, find a house that doesn't need a whole lot of rehab. You know, maybe just cosmetic, paint and carpet, maybe a couple throw pillows. Countertop, you know, countertops are easy. Backsplash countertops real easy. Don't put a stitch of carpet in it. Go with vinyl plank. Have y'all seen that? It's a tongue and groove product.
It looks awesome.
It's the bomb. It's cheap and it looks like hardwoods. I mean, you got to get down on it to figure out it's not real hardwoods. So we put all that in our house. But I think anybody that decides that they're going to put their money in the stock market instead of rent houses is not being very smart. I mean, I know I'm opinionated and I'm biased towards real estate, and I'm comfortable with real estate, and I know some people are afraid, but if the guy that works at Schlumberger or the engineer over here or the doctor here, they should just be taking every few bucks, every time they get a few bucks, go buy a rent house, put it on long term with Fannie Mae until they get to 20, 10 for you, 10 for the wife, and then start going to local banks and saying, hey, I got 4 rent houses. You can get 5% with local banks right now. Get those loaded up while the rates are cheap, because when the rates go up, now you got to pay more. I mean, you're going to pay more for the same deals. So I think you buy stuff that needs a little bit of repair, not a lot of repair, and get them rented and hire a professional property manager, and don't try to do it yourself. Renters Rouse might be a choice.
One quick question and another one or two.
So
Would
three.
you still would you still recommend
These 3 things.
1 plus 2.
Would you still recommend buying in Edo right now or Eastwood?
Mhm.
Still okay. What would you say? I mean, is the biggest obstacle for some investors to choose to do wholesaling on their own versus doing a franchise model like home investors?
Mhm. Well, Home Investors in Houston specifically is closed. They're not selling anything because they have too many franchises. But Home Investors has a pretty neat deal. It's called an associate franchise, and it's, I don't know, 18 grand versus 50. And you can do it part-time. You can do it out of your house. You don't have to have an office. You have no quotas. You don't have to advertise if you don't want to. And you have a development agent that's a current franchisee that's kind of your mentor. It's a pretty neat deal. And a lot of people go in there, go in smaller, and once they see that it's something they want to do full-time, they'll upgrade to a full franchise later. It's a good way to get in. But if you don't have the cash, you don't have the cash. You know, and buying and wholesaling is not a bad business. There's, I mean, you can do direct mail with as little as a few grand a month and have a pretty reasonable campaign.
Okay.
But if you don't advertise, I don't know very good ways other than, you know, there's a whole bunch of prospecting, you know, people doing all this hard legwork, and I'm too lazy. I just advertise.
And then I guess you mentioned about, like, you know, buying a house potentially at retail if the rent actually justifies it. So you actually look at like, you know, price to the use certain ratio, like price to rent ratio, to help you justify those. In that,
Yeah, so the numbers is $100,000 house ought to rent for $1,000, right?
Yeah.
1%.
Yep.
So if a neighborhood is somewhat balanced, you would think a $1,300 rental is worth $130. Well, you get a lot of, especially Katy and Cypress, Missouri City, out West Park Tollway, that area, where it's you know, 110, 115, rents for $1,350, $1,400. So my thought is those neighborhoods will catch up. The values will go higher. Well, we just sold one in Katy. I don't know why I know why we sold it. It was 2-bedroom, and I like 3-bedroom. We sold it for like 118 in about a day, and we had 8 offers. Appraisal came in at 109, and there was no comps. You couldn't get it over 109 no matter what you did. And you had 5 offers over 115.
Wow.
So that's just a matter of time where that neighborhood's going to go to 120, 130, right? It just is. So that little sweet spot of 100 to 140, there's a lot of room to make some money in those by finding that neighborhood where it's creeping. It's not creeping, it's racing up to that, to be even with the rent.
Do you have a price to rent ratio threshold that you use, kind of as just a ballpark?
75, 80.
75, 80.
I mean, we try to stay below 70, but if it's a neighborhood we like and it's a slam dunk deal, it's already occupied, you know, a lot of factors, we may go up to 75, sometimes even 80. Most of our investors are 85 or less, you know, and some of them are 90. I've got one guy, he's actually my business coach. He said, bring me $4 million worth of rental properties and I'll buy them all. And my guy says, well, where do you want them? He goes, I don't care. He goes, I don't even want to know the address. I don't ever care to see the house. If it'll rent for 1% or less, or 1% or more, I'll buy it. If it's rentable. He goes, I don't want to rehab them. He goes, paint and carpet at the most. Well, when you say carpet, paint and flooring. And I'll buy $4 million worth right now. Because he knows the value of buying and holding an asset that's going up in value and somebody else is paying it off. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
He's willing to pay 1%.
And would you, how about like classifications in neighborhoods like A, B, C, D? I mean, is there like you prefer maybe?
Yeah, so HomeVestors has classifications, and they call them class 1, 2, and 3, 4. So when you start having boarded up houses, you know, vacant houses with high grass, graffiti on houses, and they do a around the area. We really focus on 322 brick, $1,200 or $1,300 and up to $1,700, $1,800, and a neighborhood that people have pride of ownership.
So can I assume probably that's maybe a class
We call that
2?
we call that a class 3, and class 4 is like everything is perfect,
Okay.
like perfect neighborhood. And class 2 will have like no more than one boarded up house or one bad house within a 20 house radius, you know, something like that. And so, you know, you get into the heights though, and you could argue that's a class 4, but you have a, you know, auto parts store next door, you know, so
Right.
it's kind of an interesting, you know, so yeah, there's a lot of, it's not just black and white.
Right.
You got to look at it reasonably and say, this is a neighborhood that's turning around. People want to be here, and it doesn't matter that there's a boarded up house down the street. Doesn't matter.
Cool. Thank you. That was like 4 or 5 questions.
Whatever your
You said 3.
Do you always pull comps to determine ARV?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, every time.
you'd be crazy not to. So we pull sales comps and rental comps. We do we go on MLS and we do the polygon, then we'll do the section, and then we'll do the whole neighborhood. And what we like to do is really not filter very much. A lot of times, you know, our assistant will give us 4 comps, and like, there's way more than 4 comps. Go back, let's get, well, these others were as is. Well, I want to see those 2. Let me have, I'd rather have more information than less, right? So we can say, well, there's a lot of wholesale activity, and that was all at this in this range per square foot. We're getting it for here. If we choose not to retail it, there's 4 wholesale comps. So we pull rental and sales comps. Yeah.
And then we've got 2 questions up here.
Where do you get your rental comps from?
MLS, and we also use another software called Rent Range.
Okay.
We have we have a deal with them through Renters Warehouse. And so Rent Range is a cool product that gives you trends in the neighborhood. It gives you a confidence score on what it says the rent should be. But you got to pay every time you pull a Rent Range.
Do you think the Houston rental market will get depressed when the retail market cools off and inventory increases, like we're starting to see in certain neighborhoods that are affected by the price of oil?
Yeah, we've already seen it,
Yeah.
for sure. The higher end is really not great. The rental prices and the rental movement is lower in the higher end already. But anything under a couple thousand, it's almost in Houston recession proof. There's still people moving to Houston every day. They're just not making $250,000 a year.
Right.
Those folks are scared to death, and they're moving. They're looking for a job. So on the higher end, there's always more risk, I think. But on the lower end, I don't foresee a whole lot of problems. You know, other than it might go flat a little bit, but I don't think you'll see a decrease.
For your business in particular, that's kind of why y'all stay in that range that you like to stay in, or
Yeah,
is that just...
there's a whole lot less risk in that range. There's potential for appreciation, and just you have a whole lot of more folks that can afford that house.
Right.
So you don't have the risk of a long lease up period, and you're not in the $700 or $500 rent range where people are tearing up every time they leave. You got to go redo the whole house. You know, the thing that the trap we fell into is looking at the yields on a $800, $700 rental and saying, oh my gosh, we could be all in at $30,000 and get $800. We're going to make 50% on our money. Wrong. Because every time they move out, and it's every year because they don't pay and you got to get rid of them, you got to repaint the whole house because there's grease and dirt and filth and the carpet's ruined. You know, back when we were dumb enough to put carpet in rent houses. So every single house is a thinner margin $1,400 house, you're making money.
So do your property managers for Renters Warehouse, do they help once there is a vacancy? What kind of services do they provide to the landlord in the
We
interim?
just tell them good luck and send them on their way. No, so what we do is we collect the rent, we manage the repairs, we do random inspections, and we enforce the lease. So those are the four main things Renters Warehouse does. That's my sales pitch. So one of the tasks though is renewals. So tenants coming up due, we make them have a 60-day notice, not 30.
Right.
Okay. So at about 80 days, we're starting to get in touch with the tenant and say, what are you going to do? Right? What's the plan? And we track that weekly. How many leases do we have that are less than 90 days out? How many of them are in progress? How many of them are leased or renewed? So when we contact the tenant and say, hey, you want to stay? And they say, no, we're leaving for sure. What's the one thing that we could ask the landlord to do that you would stay? Don't say, what can you do? What's the one thing? Because if you say, what can you do? They'll give you a list. What's the one thing? Sometimes we'll get them with that because it's our job to do the best we can for our landlord, right? And if they leave, we get to lease the house again and make 1 month's rent, but it's not ethical for us to try to make them leave. So we try to make them stay. If they in fact are leaving for sure, I'm moving out of state, got a new job. So then we're going to assign that to one of our leasing agents, and they're going to go up, contact the owner and say, hey, they're moving out. Remember me? I was the one that found the tenant last year. I'm going to do it again. And we call the tenant and say, hey, tenant, remember you agreed to let us show the house the last 30 days while you're in the house? Tenant said, yep. So they go put the sign in the yard, put it up on Rent Feeder, and I'll talk about Rent Feeder. It's pretty cool. And then we'll start showing the house. And more times than not, we have a tenant waiting. So it's move out, hurry up and get it ready, move them in. That's the ideal situation. We own Rent Feeder. Renters Warehouse owns that. It's a syndication tool, kind of like Postlets. Everybody familiar with Postlets? And we syndicate to 230 websites. So we get our message out that the house is for rent to way more people. We actually have a posting tool for Craigslist built in. So all we do is we syndicate the listing, and then we open the Craigslist posting tool and we populate it. And then all we have to do extra is upload the photos and post to Craigslist. So it really, you just log into Craigslist, open the tool, and post. So our agents are able to post to 230 sites plus Craigslist in about 5 minutes.
That's awesome.
So they get the word out. So we get more leads. So our marketing time is, right now we're just under 18 days to find a tenant on average. And in Houston, the average is around 35.
That's amazing.
And what's the make ready time usually on average between tenants?
Between 30 minutes and 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So usually,
If the house is completely trashed, you may have to go re-sheetrock it.
right?
But we have a lot of tenants that fix the house up, and you can just walk in and put a new tenant in right away. You know, and we get 1 month's rent on our deposit. So if you don't do what you're supposed to do, we're going to take it away.
Right.
So we make our owners professionally clean the house before the tenants move in and have it pest free when they move in. So when they move out, we can expect the same. We do video move-ins and move-outs. So we also use an inspection software that has video built into it. So we're doing it the same way every time, and we're actually videoing inside drawers and cabinets. We're turning on diverters. We're running the sink. We're flushing the toilet. Everything proven to be working. Everything's proven to have no leaks. Everything's proven to be clean. So when they move out, we can expect that out of the tenant. And a video is worth 1,000 pictures. So
That's awesome.
it's one of our 18 softwares. We count Gmail as one, so we can get the number up a little bit.
More familiar with Gmail.
So can you talk a little bit about your pricing scale for the property management services?
So we typically charge 1 month's rent for your normal 1-year lease for tenant placement, and we charge $99 a month flat rate for management. If you have a multi-unit building, we go down as low as $70 if it's over 10 units. So we go 99, 90, 80, 70 based on the number of units. If somebody has 5 houses but they're scattered all over Houston, they just pay $99 each.
Does
But
that
if they,
include maintenance?
it includes managing the maintenance, yes, but not paying for the maintenance.
So you'll do the scheduling and the finding of the contractors and that kind of thing.
We had 401 maintenance tickets in the last 30 days. And about 398 of them were damn ACs.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
This is Texas.
Well, we just got a new vendor that is, they have 105 trucks in Houston, and they don't charge extra to go out on weekends. They don't charge extra to go out on Christmas Day.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So that'll be a great benefit to our tenants. And somebody mentioned treating the tenants a certain way. It's very important to us to make them feel like they're our customer.
Yeah.
They're not. The owner's the customer, make no mistake, right? But to do the best job for our customer, if we treat that tenant with respect, I mean, I've been a tenant. How many people are or have been tenants, right? If you think, and we do, it's not just think, but if you feel like your manager cares about you rather than you're just where's my money, right? Then you'll tend to renew your lease.
Exactly.
Because you say, there's no telling who I'm going to get next. And tenants know. It's a crapshoot with managers and owners. Is how are they going to get treated, whether they're going to fix the house or not. And you get somewhere that promptly gets over there and fixes the house, cares about you. When they mess up, they tell you they're sorry and they fix it quickly. And tenants love us. You know, all tenants don't love us. Some tenants are crazy, right? Some owners are crazy. The public is crazy. We know that. But most tenants really appreciate the fact that we actually have people working in the maintenance department that have that personality that care about people and want to get it done quickly because they feel for them, not just because it's their job.
Yeah.
So.
How does Renters Warehouse compare to other property management companies? And yeah, I think we already asked the other question.
Rental comps. So there's a few things we do different. One is the rent feeder, where we have the 230 websites. So our marketing time is about half of the market. So the standard model for renting houses is put it on MLS, cross your arms and wait for another realtor to bring a tenant in, show the house, and rent it out and split the deal, right? That's normal. So what we do is we put it on Rent Feeder and MLS, and our agent's racing those other agents to rent that house because he can get paid more if he rents it himself, right? So our marketing time is about half because of that. So you're talking about a huge savings for owners when you take, let's say, 16 or 17 days off your average marketing time over 100 units over 10 years, right? We do the video move-ins and move-outs. No one else does that I know of. Our rent collection is probably, I don't know anybody that collects rent as effectively as we do. Now, I'm not looking at their books, but in June's the last numbers I've seen on rent collection. Well, actually, I saw some numbers yesterday. So it's, as of yesterday, and yesterday was the 26th, we had $50,000 outstanding out of 1.2 million. So it was about 4%, 5% of our rent. In June on the 26th, we had 10,000 outstanding on the 26th. So, and that 50 includes my deadbeat clients that I've had for like 20 years that are always late. And I just can't, I do the exact opposite of what you're supposed to do. And when I have a Section 8 client that's been there for 20 years and I care about them, I let them slide. So, what else differentiates us? We don't manage houses the way everyone else does. So a normal property management company says, okay, you're a property manager. I'm hiring you to be a property manager. These are your 100 units to manage, right? And now I'm going to hire another property manager as I grow, and you get a bunch of units to manage. Well, that's the absolute worst thing you could do. Because now you're telling that manager to be a controller. You're telling them to be a customer service person. You're telling them to be a move-in and move-out specialist. You're telling them to be a maintenance coordinator, when you can just hire a controller to do all the houses. We have one person, all they do is renewals. That's their whole job. Every day, renewals. Think of how good she is at negotiating a renewal and getting you a couple bucks more. Now, some owners that have been with another manager and they come over, they get frustrated. They're like, well, I have to talk to different people about different things. Absolutely, because they're good at doing what they do. It's stupid for somebody to try to do everything and be not very, kind of like owning 5 different businesses, right? you're bad at all of them. If you get really, really good at one thing, our maintenance coordinators, they have relationships with all of our contractors. You don't want everybody in the building calling the same maintenance guys, running them 3 different directions. You just want a couple folks, and they're all in the same room, so they can go, hey, you got Miguel doing anything? Nope, I need an AC, So we're really good at separating the duties, and as we grow, those duties become even more discreet. So you've got, just in the last quarter, that person became renewals only. She was doing renewals and one other thing. So rent collection, one person, that's all they do. They do rent collection. And we have a cool software that calls them every 2 hours and says, where's my money? Where's my money? Where's my money? Where's my money? And they go, I only owe $200. Well, pay the $200 then, and we'll make it stop. So it works. It's very effective. When the dollar goes out, the phone blows up. Make it stop. Well, bring me my money. So there's a whole lot more differentiators. The rent feeder is probably one of the bigger. We have a tenant warranty. So when we place a tenant, if they don't work out for any reason in the first 9 months of a 12-month lease, we'll find you a new tenant for free. I don't know anybody else that does that either. So what that does is it's a business technique. It does 2 things for me. It's a sales tool, right? Because the customer says, well, what a great, it's security, right, for the owner. But the second thing it does is it makes my realtors care about the quality of the tenant. And that's 2 good things. 1, it's good for the owner, but 2, it's good for property management because they don't have to deal with a deadbeat, right? That's not going to pay, because that agent's the one's going to work for free. They don't want to do that. So it works out well.
That's great.
So what kind of background do the tenants go through before you'll place them?
We check credit, criminal, we verify their income, we verify their rental history, sex offender database. Are you familiar with Rent Bureau?
No.
So we subscribe to Rent Bureau, and we pull Rent Bureau. And Rent Bureau is kind of like a credit report for tenants. So like your Gray Stars of the world, the big property managers use it. And it's basically, you'll see a line and it'll say January, February, March, April, May of 15, 16, it'll say P, L, paid late, or N, no pay. And it's by the month. It says number of times late, 0. Number of times late, 4. And it's just like a credit report with a month to month. And so our system automatically uploads to Rent Bureau. So it's a benefit to the tenant because it's building credit, because it gets Experian owns Rent Bureau.
Right.
So that's a great benefit. It's another technology we use to help the tenants and help screen tenants better. Because when we see somebody that has kind of a low credit score, or they had a problem with a repoed car or something like that, but we see 4 years of Rent Bureau perfect, we know it's a good tenant.
Right. That's very cool.
As a quick question, putting up signs on your property renting, my experience, or at least my feeling, is that I don't want to advertise to people that my house is vacant or so. I mean, what is your feeling on that?
It depends. So in a $5,000 neighborhood, we usually don't put up a sign. In a $800, $500 neighborhood, probably not. But in your 13, 14 and up, it's fine. People aren't just driving the neighborhoods looking for someone to rob. Does it happen? Probably. I don't even know if I can remember it happening to us other than one of my houses in South Park. And in South Park, as soon as the house is vacant, you better board it up. It's getting better.
Yeah.
We're selling houses over 100 in South Park now. Insane. So, but yeah, we usually do. Sometimes the owner prefers not have one. Most owners want it. But you're right, in the lower neighborhoods, it's concern that you just broadcast to the world that nobody is there. But I would say in 50% of our houses are occupied when we're marketing them.
So if you had to do anything all over again, what would you do different?
I answered this question the other day. How much time do we have? So two major things. One, I would have started keeping good quality rent houses from day one. And I would be done working already. I was selling everything. I thought I was just the smartest thing in the world. We're buying and we're flipping. We're house flippers because it's a romantic, cool job, right?
Right.
Being an investor. But I would have kept houses that were good quality houses
Sooner.
a long time ago. And what was the other part of that was so important? I don't know. I'll think of it in a minute.
Okay. So John, who was at the Jet Lending event last week, asked, why aren't you living on an island in the Florida Keys like your client that you had at the Jet Lending event?
Oh, JD? Yeah. I'm going to Aruba tomorrow. My son is graduating high school next year.
Okay.
So we weren't going anywhere until that was done. He's in Friendswood, which is, in my opinion, the best school here.
I grew up in Friendswood.
Oh, yeah. Okay, what year?
I graduated 2004.
My daughter was 2006.
Okay.
Anyhow, you just told the whole world how old you are, right?
That's fine.
See, if she's young enough to ask that too.
Yeah.
So are all of you guys. So I think a lot of people look at goals differently. His was, I want to have a lifestyle with my kids in the Keys. His kids were, hey, let's do it,
Yeah.
while they were still in school. And he's like, man, let's do it. Let's go there. And he's not living he's got 27 houses. You know, he's making good money, but he's not bringing in $1 million a month. You know, neither are any of us, but well, except for you.
Yeah.
But,
Naturally.
you know, my idea of wealth is probably a little higher than most people. I'm not happy with $50,000 a month. You know, I'm not saying I make $50,000 a month. I'm saying if somebody said my goal to make $50,000 a month, that's way lower than mine. So I want to be much more comfortable than that. One of my goals is to fly private by a certain time. So everybody should have written goals, obviously. And one of my written goals is to fly private. What was that word we tried to mess up a while earlier? So, you know, if I were to check out and go to the Keys, I could afford to, but I wouldn't be growing the business like I am now, and I need more time to grow it to a bigger scale. But it'll happen. My place is Belize, so I'm going to Belize in November. My wife's going in September and November. Girls trip in September. But here's the benefit: if you guys are in real estate, use Southwest Airlines for your materials and your advertising, your credit card, and I think I have 500,000 miles, so I can fly anywhere I want for free. Well, anywhere that Southwest flies.
Which is
So,
a lot of
which
places
is,
now.
it's getting to be a lot more. That's why we're going to Aruba.
Oh, that's awesome.
And the Cowboys game in Minneapolis.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You said if you would start over and do it again differently, you would get better quality houses from day one. How would you, if you wanted to be more aggressive in growth, in that strategy, how would you go about it? Like,
Well, you know, in my model, it was I'm going to be a full-time real estate investor from day one, which was ridiculous. You know, I'm a 20-something-year-old dummy just out of the military, and so I'm like, ooh, I wonder if I'm going to go over my limit on my credit card and be able to pay my house note this month, right?
Yeah.
So don't do that. I mean, people that have a job and want to acquire property, you can actually buy houses today in the 75-80% range and be in them for almost nothing and get a loan at a bank for 75-80% LTV pretty easily. So what a lot of people are doing, and I'm shameless plug for Jet Lending, but they have a long-term product now where you buy it on hard money, and then they roll it into a long-term for some fee, you know, conversion fee, and it's about a 6% deal. It's not what you can get at Fannie Mae, but for the guy that wants to go and buy a house and roll it into a long-term, if you can get it around 80% or less, you can do it for nothing, and they'll give you the rehab money. So there's stuff like that out there, but as long as you can find that 322 brick, make sure there's no galvanized pipes, make sure there's Romex and not knob and tube wire and old school stuff. And the other thing I would do, every time you buy a rental property, if the roof's 12, 15 years old and still good shape, replace it, because you got the money right then from wherever you're getting your money.
so you're saying to be aggressive in growth in that strategy would be to buy only good deals with the 3 brick.
Buy halfway decent deals, 80, 85 cents and less, and buy as many as you can as fast as you can while rates are low.
I see. Okay.
Wendy, did you have a question earlier?
I did. You mentioned when you see the email blast, shameless plug for email blast, and you notice that the ARV is low, you jump on it because you know that they've miscalculated their comps. You
Or
may-
maybe they're just being conservative,
True.
you know,
True.
being really fair with people.
We wish more people would do that.
Well, the problem is,
Yeah, good.
and maybe I know you've used our site before. The problem is, and the chief complaint from most of our members in our wholesale basis, the ARVs are inflated. So, with that being said, if you've seen a property that you felt was a good property, but for whatever reason the ARV was overstated, how would you approach that?
You pick up the phone and call the investor and go, hey, I pulled the comps in that neighborhood and your 130 is really 115. Where the hell, what are you doing? You know, and see if you can get them to go back to the seller and get a better deal. Sometimes you can hold their hand to go get a better deal and you can still buy it from them.
Do you think that wholesalers are being intentionally deceptive, or maybe they're just miscalculating?
Some are, and it's just natural to say, well, there's 3 comps in this area, a 120, a 120, and a 150. Add those up and divide by 3, comes out to 130.
Yeah.
Let's say 130. I can justify 130 because it's the average, and they're not necessarily being,
Just taking them in.
they're not being, they kind of are, but you're trying to sell the deal and they're salesmen, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Trust but verify, I guess, is a good thing to say. I've never ever. I'll look at their value, and if they have the actual comps there, I'll look at them, and then I'll say, where in the world did they get that number from? And I'll hit archive. But a lot of times I'll look at it and say, that's about right, and then I might go pull comps, you know, just to say. But I'm never going to use their comps because, especially if there's 3.
Yeah.
They're the 3 highest ones. But if I can justify, like if I'm going to sell a house to a homeowner and I rehab it and it's in nice shape and I use the 3 highest comps, I'm not doing anything unethical. They chose to buy the house, they got an appraisal, and appraiser's going to use the 3 highest. So I don't think it's unethical to do that, but when they just intentionally leave low ones out or just make up a number and make it too high, come on. I mean, just show what the deal is, and if people want to buy it. But you get that dumb doctor deal, and what they call it. You know, some doctor thinks he's a real estate investor, he's going to pay too much, and they're out there rolling the dice if they can get him to buy it. You know,
Is some of that based on reputation too? Do you, I mean, you've been in the business long enough that you
Yeah.
kind of know.
Well, some of
who
them I
to-
just delete them right away because I know. You
So
know,
you
there's.
can tell,
I almost said it.
Yeah, so unless it's an actual good deal, you run your own comps. And you
No, we run our own comps no matter what.
But if they overestimate it and you know that it's overestimated, you just won't even work with them?
Sometimes I call them and make them feel bad. You know, tell them to quit trying to bait and switch people, you know, or trying to, you know,
Yeah.
inflate a deal. Or sometimes I'll email. I have a canned email for that, so I can send it to them and be me. The other one that I get a lot is if we wholesaling a house, we get an offer on a house, and you'll take your offer and you'll take your asking price and multiply it by 0.7. It'll be to the penny what they're offering. So I have a canned email for that. It's like, we don't take offers from people that haven't seen the inside of the house. Have you seen the house yet? Because they haven't. So they're blasting out 200 offers at 70% of the ask price. And then they go look at the house after. And then they're not going to buy it. They're wasting your time. Idiots.
What else?
Any other questions from the group? I know Facebook's going to cut us off soon.
Tell
so-
John he needs to come by the office and visit.
John,
He does.
He came on here last week.
He comes once a month.
He needs to come by our office and start buying houses.
There you go.
Be
John.
a landlord.
You've made you a connection, John.
okay.
What would you say about turnkey properties then? Because usually they're not, they're not going to be at the 80%. They're going to probably closer to 90, 95 or something like that. So, I mean, is there
For the guy that doesn't know how to rehab at all, doesn't understand construction, even at 90 you're going to make money. I mean, like I said, my business coach, he'll say, I'll pay retail for a house because I don't care about cash flow. when somebody says, what's the cash flow? He goes, who cares? This is a wealth tool, not a cash flow tool. I'm not buying this to make $182.16 per house every month. I'm buying this so in 15 or 20 years, I have $10 million worth of houses with no debt. That's the way you got to look at rental property. You look at it as, oh, I can make $87 more if I do. Take all the money you make from rental properties and put it in an account for rental properties in case something happens. And then when you build that up enough, go buy more rental properties. Don't use that money. This is what he does. That's what we do. We don't use rental property money for anything other than buy more rental property.
John replied to you and he said, I've been a landlord, but I bought ghetto houses and lost my lunch.
Same thing happened to us, right?
We're getting close to time. Did you want to do a little pitch, or I'll let you?
Renterswarehouse.com. Renters Warehouse is on Facebook. There's a great amount of data that comes through that. Renters Warehouse there's one Facebook for the whole nation. So our blog gets pushed through there. It's good info for landlords. We'd love to help, landlords if they want to have their houses. Man, it's just crazy. The other part is, what's your time worth? If you can buy one more deal a month by focusing on that versus having a distraction of a leaky faucet or this and that, and again, the business coach will tell you, never do, minimum wage tasks. Hire other people to do that, and that's our forte. We're good at it. So that's all I know.
Awesome. Well, we definitely appreciate your time and coming to talk with us and giving us a perspective that we haven't maybe learned as much that we'd like to about. So we appreciate it, and we hope that the Facebook audience learned a lot from this live session also. And until next time, thank you for joining us.
Everybody wave, look, yay!
Tell Doug he has to do an email blast for me now.
Okay.
For our next event, for the big event coming.
Cool. All right, awesome. Thanks everyone who joined.